Hello, my name is Matthew Pfeiffer with mattpfeiffercoach.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I create videos and content about toxic, narcissistically abusive relationships. If you have a question that you'd like for me to answer, make sure you send it to justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoach.com. Again, that is justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoach.com. Just make sure you keep that email 2 to 3 paragraphs max, and you're also very direct and to the point of what your question actually is. If it's too long, if it's too lengthy, unfortunately, I will not be able to get to it. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe notification and you hit the bell notification so you're notified each and every time I upload a new video. And also make sure that you check in with my podcast, the Matt Pfeiffer Experience. You can tune in every Wednesday, watch and listen live with me and whatever guest I have that week. And you can participate. You can ask us questions during the actual recording of the show. With all that being said, let's get into today's email. So today's email comes from a person who is struggling with a narcissist who has no problem violating their protective order and just will not leave this person who has written this in alone. And this is very common, especially once we start getting out of narcissism. So for a lot of you probably know that narcissism is on a spectrum, not just any spectrum, but the cluster B spectrum. And the closer, once you start getting a little bit higher on that spectrum, we start getting closer and closer to antisocial personality disorder, or what people would call a sociopath. So with all that being said, let's get into today's email. Let's break this down and let's see if we can help this person out. So this email reads, "Hi, Matt. About 6 weeks ago, I ended a 2-year relationship with a narcissist who struggles with addiction and mental illness. The breakup did not go over well. I was harassed and threatened to the point where I had to get a protective order." So number one, good job getting the protective order. A lot of times that takes a big step and a lot of courage. So good job doing that. A lot of times people feel bad, right? And you may have even felt bad, but a lot of times in situations like this, we have to do it and practice what's called radical acceptance. He violated the emergency protective order the day after he was served and was arrested. He spent a few weeks in jail before he was released on bond. The harassment has continued via social media and emails to my parents. But since direct threats have not been made, my EPO has not been extended and his bond has not been revoked. There's no off switch to this guy. So it's just a matter of time before he violates this again, right? And one of the things that you have to do is that you have to continue to document, continue to do the paperwork, and continue to do your due diligence through this process, and also continue to talk to a lawyer, continue to talk to because what we want to do is we want to continue a paper trail, right? And I'm going to get into a little bit more here in just a second. Let's continue with this email. So this email reads, "Some of my friends have suggested blocking him on social media. I agree with that, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why here in a second. Blocking him on social media, but I won't. Not while there is an open case going through the legal system. The more he does, it makes my case stronger, which is the reason why I'm actually suggesting that you block him. One of the things that we have to understand is that once he's blocked, right, that he's likely going to try to find and he's going to poke his head out, so to speak, in other ways, which is again going to make your case stronger. So with him having access and him being able to basically just comfort himself, so to speak, right, for lack of better words, because he's not actually comforting, but able to spy on you, right, through social media, is preventing him from showing his ugly head, so to speak. One of the things that I tell people in situations like this is that it's important that you don't allow for your people pleasing to enable their behavior. And that's what we're doing here. Am I saying that you're doing it intentionally or anything like that? No, right? But what happens, and his argument, and this happens too often. I don't think this would be a strong. I'm not a lawyer. Keep this in mind. But this is the type of argument that this could possibly turn into in court. If this person was so dangerous, why isn't he blocked on social media? Is the type of argument that this has the potential of turning into, right? If you didn't want to see him, if you didn't want to deal with him, if he was too dangerous, right? The question quite often in situations like this is why was that next move not made? So I 100% would make that move, unless for some reason your lawyer has said that it's better for you not to, right? But that is a move that I would make, and I would also expect for him to send the letter, for him to start calling, for him to try to regain access somehow. Which again, what will happen is that this order again would be violated. Then you can continue with this paper trail and continue to bury him, so to speak, and make your case stronger, just the same way that you said. But I like the way that you're thinking. You're headed in the right direction with this. Um, let's get back into this email. In the meantime, I have taken measures to protect myself at home and when I have to leave the house. Good job. I've also gone back into therapy. That's also a good job. I've read Codependent No More. I'm currently reading Psychopath Free, and I've listened to your podcast. Is there anything else you would suggest that I do to help me with my healing process? I still love this guy, so that's called a trauma bond, right? So you're stuck in a trauma bond, but that's to be expected in a relationship like this, right? So we have to understand that we have to practice radical acceptance, right? That we have to accept life on life's terms. That sometimes our emotions and the way that we think about somebody need to kind of catch up to us. If we were all in a burning building, guess what? And if we were like on the second story and we couldn't get down the stairs, we might be afraid to jump out the building. We might be afraid to make that leap and jump into, a pile of bushes and things of that nature, understanding that it might cause some pain. But guess what we're about to do? We're going to have to jump out that building to make sure that we keep ourselves safe, even though we know that we could end up with a broken leg, broken arm, or something along those lines. But we understand, right, the ramifications that are there. Same thing here, right? That we have to do what we know is in our own best interest, and then eventually our emotions will catch up, right? Because what's happening here is that this love that you think that you have for him is really more along the lines of an addiction, and it's a very unhealthy, obviously toxic type of love. But what you're going to start to learn through this process, once you start to actually learn to love yourself, is that that was never actually love to begin with, right? But I understand where you're coming from. Let's get back into this email. I still love this guy, but I know that I can't be with him. He has abused me emotionally. The more that he lashes out, a little more of the love that I have for him fades. And let's unpack here for a little bit, because you hit the nail on the head, right? Likely when you're not thinking about him, or when he's not doing anything, you're probably you're having what's called a euphoric recall, and you're thinking about all the good times that you've had with him, all the great sex, all the dates, and that sort of thing. And so you notice that when he does bad things, you don't miss him. So this is the reason why. So you asked, what are some things that you should do towards healing? Number one, you want to write down all the reasons why you left to begin with, all of the damaging things, all of the things that he said, if he's cheated, all of it, right? Don't leave anything out, and be as detailed as you possibly can. Keep that with you everywhere you go, right? Whether you put it in your phone, or that part doesn't matter, but make sure you have access to it, right? Or in your wallet, because you could have a euphoric recall at work, right? In the middle of the day, and start thinking about him, and you can pull out that list. And what happens is, this is a mindfulness practice that's going to help bring your mind right back to where it actually needs to be. Right. So let's get back into this email, and then I'm going to give you a few other resources. The more he lashes out, the more of the love for him begins to fade. I'm not angry. I don't hate him. I just want to move on with my life in peace. So, for us to be able to do that, you have to be the hero in your own story, right? He's obviously shown that he's not capable of just letting this go peacefully. I'm praying that he takes the deal that the Commonwealth will offer him this week, to be admitted into a mental institution for a minimum of 1 year instead of going to trial. Right. So yeah, we can certainly hope for that, right? But even so, one of the things I tell people who struggle with codependency is that you're going to have to be the hero in your own story, right? You're going to have to be the one to begin to set and enforce boundaries, because even if he does go, there's still the possibility that he comes out and he's still obsessed with you. And so we have to make sure that we keep ourselves protected. And we also have to make sure that we begin to heal ourselves. So Some of the other things I would tell you that you need to do to heal, because it sounds like you're protecting yourself pretty well physically, is and you're already in therapy. I would encourage for you to get into a support group. I would also encourage for you to begin to talk to a lot of those other people in the support group. And also, one of the things I would do is I would talk to all of your neighbors, right, and tell them, like, if they see suspicious cars, things of that nature, don't hesitate to call 911 or to check on you, those sorts of things, right? One of the things that happens in situations like this is a lot of times the codependent wants to kind of close off because they're embarrassed about this situation, but a lot of people actually love helping out in this type of situation, right? So you want to put a spotlight on this person, and the spotlight has the potential of making this matter very, very minor, right? I've talked to a lot of people when I've told them that, you'd be surprised some of the things that the neighbors have done for them. They've caught the person's thing on their cameras, on their car or their motorcycle or whatever, or walking by on their cameras, and they've turned it in, given it over as evidence to the person. And so people can be an absolutely great resource. So I would write down all the things that have happened, right, to kind of bring you back to the present, to remind you how bad things actually were. Continue to go through therapy, and I also would continue to I would get into a support group, because it's important for you to connect with other people who have been through, who understand, because your friends, your family, they may mean well, but eventually they might give you what's called unintentional bad advice, right? They mean well, but they might tell you something that's actually kind of off, because this is not a normal, healthy breakup. The other thing is I would continue to document all of his behavior, because we have legal things. And then the last thing, in terms of your healing, so I have a whole list of books, recommended books, in my bio. One of the books, so you're reading two absolutely amazing books. One of the books I would highly recommend for you is, well, two of them. One of them is Out of the Fog by Dana Morningstar. The other one is Whole Again by Jackson McKenzie. So the same person who wrote Psychopath Free is the one that wrote Whole Again. So thank you very much for writing in. Thank you, everyone else. If you have a question that you'd like for me to answer, make sure you send it to justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoaching.com. Again, that is justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoaching.com. Also, make sure you tune into my podcast. You can join us every Wednesday evening live, 9 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. And you can join me and whatever guest I have that night, that evening, 9 p.m. Central. You can ask us questions, and you can participate and listen to it recorded live. If you can't make it live, that's fine. You can also watch the replay. You can watch the playback, or you can listen to the playback on all podcast platforms. Thank you guys very much, and you guys have a good one.